All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the third installment of our virtual series for National Indigenous History Month. My name is John. I'm here at the Simcoe County Museum. I have with me this week Hunter Corbiere. Are you at home? Yeah, you're in Wabashine today. Okay. Sorry for the delay. We had some technical difficulties. One thing I've learned from doing virtual programs since COVID started is that something always goes wrong and it's never the same thing. So you never know how to deal with it properly. And then it never happens again. So sorry for the delay. We're ready to get started now. So I'm just going to quickly introduce you, Hunter, and then I'll turn it over to you and then we'll carry on with the afternoon. Hunter has always grown up around arts and crafts. We had the honor of having both your parents actually here as part of this series earlier this month. During COVID, she started kind of taking up crafting and learning traditional methods like making moccasins and moose hide work and bead work. October last year, Hunter and Jennifer Burnell, who was our speaker at the beginning of the month, opened a business together at the Midland Cultural Center. So we're really honored to have Hunter here today, sharing some of her skills and her story. So without any further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Hunter.
All right, thanks, John. I guess it's not morning. I was just going to say good morning, everyone, but good afternoon. I'll introduce myself. Thank you for the little introduction, but I'll say it in as best I know in my language. So Ani Kinuaya, Hunter Indigenous Cause, Ajijak Dodam, Jiging Donjaba, Wabashin Donjaba, Jibwe and Dao. What I said there was, my name's Hunter. I'm a First Nation member of Chiging First Nation, which is on Manitoulin Island. But I live in Wabashine. I grew up in Wabashine. That's like my home. I'm really excited to be here today just to talk a little bit about the skill and art of moose hair tufting and caribou hair tufting. I'm just going to talk about some of the work that I've done and some of the work that, that are part of my collection, and then share some of the stories and demonstrate some of the work that goes into tufting. A little bit about how I became a tufter. I'm still learning. I still have lots to learn. But when my grandmother passed away about 2 years ago, she was really well known in the area for her moose hair tufting. I have some examples here if you're able to see that. That's one little example there of her work. And here's another one. And when we're cleaning all of her stuff, I inherited this big tub, literally a big tub. I'll show you. I have it right here, of moose hair. And there was caribou hair in there. And I've always wanted to learn, and I didn't know where to start. And it was kind of just like, here, this is where you're going to start. This is where you're going to learn. And the first night we got the bin, I went through it and I was like, I'm going to try my best to do this. And the first tuft I did not look at all what I thought it was supposed to look like. I was like, I think I'm doing something wrong. And I just slept on it. It was late. I'm like, okay, I'm going to come back to it another time. And I was asking my mom at the time as well, have you ever seen grandma do it? Like, is there any way, what am I doing wrong? Like, what's something that you can kind of tell me to help guide me in a sense? Because I was doing it without knowing anything. I was kind of going into it blind. The next day, my mom actually had a dream or a vision of my grandmother doing moose hair tufting. And she said, well, you got to do it more towards the end there. And you got to make sure you're pulling it tight. And she was telling me all these things that she remembers my grandma tufting. And so I did it, and it worked. I was like, oh my gosh, I did it. I mean, it still wasn't perfect, but I was super excited, and I kind of just went from there, and I've kind of learned along the way. What else has helped me kind of learn as well is also teaching others. This past month, over the course of 3 classes, we were at the Georgian Bay District High School doing moose hair tufting with the youth there, and it was a lot of fun to see those kids, really get into it. Some of them, you could probably tell they were just happy to not be in class, but they were really into it, and they were asking lots of questions, and it helped me a lot too to learn as well along the way. Now, I'm going to share my screen. I'm just going to talk about some of the first few pieces that I made and kind of the story behind that. The history with tufting starts a long time ago, or people have always kind of been doing it. It's something in respect of that animal, and it's very powerful to be able to work with natural materials from the animal and to respect that animal as well. The 2 parts of the animal that you use is the rump of the moose hide, or of the moose. So kind of like when you see a moose, it's kind of like the back of their shoulder there. And then sometimes that little part in the cheeks down into its beard almost. I've also heard that you can use the underside of a deer tail to tuft if you're in a pinch, if you want to learn. But also that caribou hair, that's also you can use as well. And I'll show you a bit of the difference in the texture of it, because it will give you different tufts by the type of hair that you're using, and whether if it's moose hair or caribou hair, you'll get a different texture, and it will overall even change the way of your tufting as well, depending on what you're going for. Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna just share my photos here. Hopefully you guys can see that. John, maybe you can just say yep.
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, so this here is one of my first pieces that I did. I did this last year. It's about a full year now since I did this piece. And this piece is called Flowering Medicine. And now here in this tuft, this is moose hair tufting. And when I was creating this piece, I was very drawn to the look of the different unique plants that grow in bogs. Bogs are one of the places that hold a lot of our medicines, the most strongest medicines that can be found within our natural resources is in bogs. And I have an environmental background, so it really was unique to see different flowers and plants bloom. If you've ever heard of pitcher plant, it is the most weirdest plant you'll see ever. And I kind of just went for it, and I just let my imagination, take over. In a sense, it kind of represents a pitcher plant. It might not look similar to the flower, but in a sense, to me, it looks similar to it. And I was really proud of this outcome, because again, this was like kind of one of the first tufts. I was like, oh my gosh, like I did it, like it looked perfect to me. But I was pretty proud of how that turned out. And that's another thing too with our tufting. Our tufting tells a story of nature and things that surround us, and it was a way to use to customize a lot of pieces, whether that was on jackets or moccasins or even just art pieces to, as amulets and medallions. I'm going to show you the next one here. Now this one here is what I call the moose in the land in the sky. Now this, I was definitely pushing my limits of what I knew and how to tuft. And again, I'm really inspired by the stories that, the land has to offer, and especially in honoring that moose. That moose, gave its life to sustain a family, and the hide was turned into, smoked deer hide, which takes hours and hours of skill, and every part of that animal is respected, even down to that hair. And in our culture, that moose can be seen in the night sky during the fall equinox in the freezing overmoon, which is November. So that was kind of the story behind this tufting piece. And this is probably one of my favorite tufting pieces I've done. When you see these on the hoop, these moose hair, it's wall art. So it's meant to be, hung up like a painting in a sense, because that's an art skill that was lost and it was illegal to practice for a very long time. So being able to be a part of bringing that back is really important to me, and I'm really, really proud of how this one turned out. And I'm in the works of making another one similar to it. And I'll show you that in a few minutes after I just talk about this last photo I have here. And then this one I did is called Flowering Trillium. And this is one that I really experimented in playing, being able to create flower or floral pictures using tufting. I didn't know where to start. I didn't know how much tufting I needed to have. So these 3 pieces really tell a story of my creativity as well, and not only telling stories of our land and the natural resources, but it also tells us the journey of my tufting, where I started and how far I've come and how much I've learned. Because tufting is really, it can take a long time to know how much, hair you need to use, or how tight you have to tie your sinew and tying the right knot, because if you don't have the right knot, it's not going to work. And it's also playing around with the different sizing of tufting and creating leaves and doing this cool thing using just the smallest pair of scissors I have. So that's just a little bit of the tufting that I've done. Now just be patient with me as I try to come back. So hopefully everyone was able to see that. Yeah, hopefully. I'm just gonna show you some of the work I recently have done now that aren't in photo that I'll talk about as well. So the moose of the land and in the sky, as you all saw there in my photo, again, that only tells the story of, that 2 spirits, one being in the sky. When we look into the night sky, we see that moose over in November and that freezing over moon. But it also pushed myself to be able to tuft and to be able to learn the different techniques of tufting as well. And everyone's got their own different way of doing it. It's like beadwork. I self-taught myself how to bead, and everyone's got their own way of beading of how they were taught from their grandmother or wherever. And it's the same for everything. It's the same for moccasins. There's going to be different moccasins. Regalia, everyone's got a different type of artwork. This is the beginning of another one like that. You can see that there. So if you can see that texture, it's very coarse. Moose hair is very hollow, so that's why we're able to tuft with it. Now you're also able to do embroidery work with moose hair as well. It's like similar to doing embroidery with porcupine quills. I have yet tried to do that. But one of these days I'm going to try. I told myself I'm going to try and do some embroidery work, because for a while last year I was working as the Indigenous Heritage Specialist at Ste. Marie among the Hurons, and a lot of the Wendat art pieces in their moccasins and in their mitts is embroidery work, and that was that predates the use of beads, especially glass beads. So it's that's a really old traditional skill, and a lot of our skills are like that as well. This one here is an amulet I just made, actually. I just made this last week, and it's actually caribou hair. So you can see the textural difference between the 2. Now, caribou hair is a lot softer in a sense, and you can see it's not as hollow and coarse as moose hair. So you get more of these poofier tufts than you would, using moose hair. And that beadwork there as well. but the two difference is unique. And so that's what I'm going to do for this one. That's the envision with this moose track. Will be with moose hair, and then my plan is to do smaller tracks that are caribou hair, and it just shows that difference in that texture and that artwork there, and I'm going to do beadwork on it as well. Here's another tufting I did. Now this is on a tiny ash basket. As I mentioned, I have an environmental background. I took forestry, and I took interest in learning that traditional skill of making black ash baskets. A lot of our black ash is, we're losing a lot of that cultural significance tree because of an invasive species called the emerald ash borer. A lot of you probably know that. You probably drive along a swamp and you see all these dead standing trees. Well, that's probably ash, because a lot of it's dying off in this area. And a lot of the traditional basket weavers and makers have to go up more north or wherever this emerald ash borer is, because, you know, without that tree, we can't practice this traditional basketry. So during COVID in 2020, me and my dad went out and harvested a black ash tree, and it didn't have emerald ash borer. So I've heard that the ash splints that you get are very brittle because the emerald ash borer larvae eat the inside cambium, so that affects your splints as well, because that tree is like a human body. It's going to put more energy into where it's getting attacked than instead of being, you know, this healthy big standing tree. So that's going to affect your annual rings and as well as the splints you need to use baskets. And on this basket, I added tufting work as well. So this one here, again, is just similar to the work I did when I did my spring trillium. And again, you can see the textural difference. This one is moose hair, and it's on birch bark. And I tufted that to the birch bark, and then I tied it and glued it to the little ash basket. And this took me all day, probably 12 hours of work. And that's the one thing too, when you see artists and they're, you know, when they sell it, and some people are like, well, that's a lot of money. Well, that's a lot of time and energy that goes into that. This is art. It might not be what you see at, like, you know, an art gallery with the paintings and artwork. This is also a type of art that takes a long time and a lot of energy as well. And it's also, again, a lost skill that was, once again, illegal to practice. And I'm very proud of how far I've come, even though it's been a very small time. I still have lots to learn, and I'm also really proud to see a lot of youth get more into learning these traditional skills, and that's one thing that made me so happy in teaching, you know, at the high school with those kids, is that they want to learn our traditional skills and take interest in wanting to learn, for, you know, that they're the next generation, so they gotta learn that too. I mean, I still am the next generation, I guess. I'm only like 23, but there's still lots to learn. But anyways, I was going to demonstrate how to tuft the best I can. So sorry if you can't really see that well. I'm going to try and do with caribou hair, because that's probably the best way to see it right now, because it's the easiest for me. When I do moose hair tufting, it's a bit harder because it's so coarse. You really have to pull tight. You got to make sure that knot is really tight, because if it's not, your moose hair tufting, it's like making a yarn pom-pom, if anyone's done that. If you don't have enough of that, like, in your bundle, it's not going to turn into a perfect pom-pom. So let me just get my little bag of hair. I have hair everywhere, and when you're doing this, you will need a big garbage bag or have a vacuum nearby you, or if you're okay with getting hair up your nose, that's fine too. Again, so this is just caribou hair that's been dyed. I have some dyed moose hair as well. So this one's like a green color. And you can see again that textural difference. Like, you don't need you see in it virtual, you can already kind of see the, like, you don't need to see it in a person to know that it's different. And I use RIT dye to dye my hair. This summer though, I really want to experiment with natural dyes as much as I can, because I've seen some beautiful colors that you can get with natural dyes. And again, it's just practicing that powerful work to be able to use the natural materials that surround us. So that's one of my goals for this year. So if anyone knows any good plants that dye really well, that'd be great. I've been doing a lot of research on it. So hopefully this year I'll be able to showcase some of that work. Here's a pink that I did. It's like a fuchsia. It's almost the same as my shirt. And that's the moose hair as well. And when I dye it, I use, are these called like nylons? So that's what I use, because all this hair is loose. So you can see like that's a bunch of moose hair. It's like that white part on the rump of the moose. And you gather it up, you sort it, you wash it, and then you dye it, you dry it, you use it. And then you still have to sort it, because there's always, like, you should see my table right now. There's a bunch of hair now. And that's how I would dye that. When you're dyeing caribou hair, typically, or reindeer, you get it in a big hide, and you just cut it up and you dye it. This I got as a gift that was gotten from a tufting. You can buy tufting kits on like Etsy and online from Indigenous content creators that take the time to be able to put these kits together and get the hair done. I also had some hair already that was in my little bin. So this was one of them. I don't know how old this is, but this is an old yellow, and that's kind of just what's in my bag right now. I think I see a question. Oh, okay. Perfect. I will. I'll talk to Kelly. It says talk to Kelly. She can help with natural dyes. I will. So to get started, what I do my artwork on is moose leather. And I cut them into these circles because that's how my grandma did it. So that's how I like to continue to do it, is on these circles. This is a Dreamcatcher hoop that's been wrapped in leather. She even signed it on the back. I should start doing that as I go, but I'm learning still. And then that was the same for this amulet. It started off as a circle, and then I thought, oh, that'd look good as like a teardrop. So again, I don't draw anything out. You probably should if you want to, make a nice, perfect flower, but honestly, you don't really need to. And again, the more you do it, the more you go. If you're trying it out, you'll realize how much hair you need, where you need to place it, how tight you need to tie it, things like that. It kind of comes to you naturally. A lot of people will say to me, wow, you must have the patience. A lot of patience if you can do beadwork and if you can do, the tufting. Well, it's not really patience if it's like second nature to you. It's in our blood roots as Anishinaabe people, as a Anishinaabe Kwe, like that's just second nature to me, and it's where I find my comfort. But again, it's not for everyone. So, okay. So what you'll need to do tufting is you'll need a Glover needle, or what we call as a leather needle. And this will literally poke through you, so just got to be careful, because remember, it has to go through thick pieces of moose, and that really doesn't really compare to our skin. Sinew. Now my sinew splits into 5. I don't know if you can see that. And this is already split. And what else I like to use is a little, this is what I use when I make moccasins and when I have to go through a lot of leather, because I don't have to like push down on the table, because that will actually break your needle, is when you put too much pressure on the table. And I tie, this is an old piece of buffalo from like 3-4 years ago probably. It's still going strong. and I use that to push through the leather. And my apologies if this is kind of hard to follow through, but I'm going to try my best. Oh, and another thing in which I don't know where it went. You'll need really small, sharp scissors. I don't know where they went, but okay. So what you do is you go, I like this side. This is like the suede side. So I'll go through, and you don't tie a knot. You just leave a little tail. You leave a longer tail because you don't need a knot. You just need to tie a knot. So you pull it all the way through, and I leave a little tail there, and you're gonna make a loop stitch. So you're basically going through the same hole almost. So you can kind of see that's where I came up through. I'm gonna go down, basically going through the same hole as, that's my needle there. That's how close that sinew is. And I'm gonna pull. And at this point, you really don't need your needle. You just need it to get through. And it creates this loop. This big kind of loop there. My mom brought me scissors. These aren't mine, but they'll do. Okay. I'll do this. I'm feeling this blue today. Probably will be the easiest to see. And what I do is, you can see it's on this hide, and this will make it easier to do. This is one way to do it. Another way is just cutting it off of the hide here. Cutting it off of the hide here. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut the hide into a little square. And I'll show you that in just a second, what that looks like. So I'll just cut it off to my best abilities. I don't have a garbage bag with me either, so it's going to be really messy. Yeah, see? So be prepared to be messy. So this is just like that little piece there. I'm going to cut this even smaller because this will be a big tuft if I just do the whole thing. Here's that little square. I'll probably just use that to do the tuft because it will show you kind of how that happens. Now this is what I like to do for caribou hair. I like to cut it into squares like this because then you can control how much hair and make sure it's even. When you're doing moose hair, you have to collect it, and I like to size it out like that much hair in a bundle, and I'll show you that after I do this tuft here. So using that loop, this big loop here, I'm gonna push back as much hair as I can, and I'm gonna put it through the loop. And this is where your patience comes in as well, because you want to make sure that it's there. You can kind of see that. So that's how much, that's whereabouts I'm going to put it and pull tight, and then you're able to cut it. I'll just fix that. So what I'll do actually, so you can see it better, to see how tufting works, it will be really cool. In the blink of an eye, it's like magic. So I'll cut it first, and then you're able to kind of see how it works. Here for a second, let me just cut it. Geez, I should have the Jeopardy music in the background while I'm cutting here. So that's kind of what it looks like there. And so since we didn't tie a knot on any of our sinew, we have two little tails, if I can get the other one, and you just pull tight. And that's how you create one tuft. And now you tie it. And the type of knot I use is a fishing knot. I don't know. I just do a knot that works best for me. Some people, I see people do different knots. Again, it's totally up to the teacher and who's doing the class or where you learned or even where you're from, there's going to be different knots. I just do a type of fishing knot where you take the two, you twist it, probably I do like 4 times. You pull really tight. Can't see it, but it pulled really tight. You go over 4 times and it will tie a knot in itself. And then for good luck, I like to go over and do a simple knot, over and then over again. I'm really bad at explaining knots. And that's your tuft. And this is where you cut it and shape it. And that's the hard part of tufting. It is getting down to the shape that you want. For the sake of this video and for the sake of everyone, I'm not going to make you sit here for 20 minutes watching me cut it and shape it. I will do it really quickly just to kind of get that excess hair out of the way. Also, these scissors are not sharp. I don't know where mine went. I use embroidery scissors that I just got from Michael's, and they're nice and sharp, and they can get into these little areas where you're able to shape it. It's like shaping hedges. The best way I can explain it there. And so that's with all the excess cut off. And you just keep going from there. If I was doing a nice flower, I would want that way smaller than what that is now. That would probably be a good size for a petal on a flower. But yeah, so that's kind of just how you tuft. Like I said, the hardest part about tufting is the sculpting of it, because you got to know how much can I cut off, how much do I cut off, and that's really the hard part. It's not intimidating to people. Like, don't be intimidated to try. It's pretty easy in a sense. It's that shaping it and sculpting it, and you have to make sure you have really sharp scissors. I don't know where these scissors are from. They're not sharp. And I'll show you how much I use just for the moose hair. So like I said, for the caribou hair, I like to cut it into a little square, so my tuftings can be to the exact amount of hair, or most of the exact amount. But with moose hair, it's different, right? Because it's all loose. Now this hair, I will probably pick it out, and this will take me a long time too. It will take me probably like 10 minutes to get a nice perfect one. I'm not gonna do that here, but again, it's just finding out the amount that you need, and I always tell people about that much. So about that much in your finger is how much I like to measure, and then I'll do the tufting. And sometimes it's not going to turn out perfect. Even when you've been doing it for a long time, it's hard to still know how much. I'm still learning to know how much I need. And it's just a matter of, see, these ones are smaller hairs. So you can't even see that, but these ones are smaller hairs. So I get rid of them and I pick the longer ones. And I will sit there for a while and just try and pick the right size. But yeah. That's tufting, and you do that over and over and over again, and it's actually a lot of fun. So I really encourage a lot of people, if you're a youth or if you're an elder, if you think you're too old to learn, you're not too old to learn, and try a new skill, and get out there and ask questions and try these traditional skills, because they're coming back. I love seeing a lot of people bring back our traditional skills and our traditional ways of artwork, which is super important, because a lot of it was lost, and it's not lost now. So it's found its way back to its people for sure. So that's kind of tufting. So maybe I'll get in if anyone has any questions. They can ask questions. But that's kind of my little spiel about tufting and my story of how I got here, and as I continue to go, and yeah. So maybe we'll do questions now, John. I don't know.
All right, so yeah, that's awesome. Thanks so much, Hunter. So yeah, if anyone has questions, just some like tips about how to do that. So there is on your toolbar, there's like a raise hand button. So depending what kind of device you're on right now, if you're on a laptop, the toolbar should be at the top of your screen. If you're on like a tablet, it might be at the side or at the bottom. But there's a little raise hand button if you want to hit that, and then I can turn your microphone on so you can ask a question. Might be easier too if you want to write out your question in the chat. So some of you have used the chat already, but it's a little speech bubble in your toolbar, so you can hit that and type out your question as well.
Yeah. And yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions or even comments.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really cool. So I guess like, I don't know, because you spoke a lot about, what it kind of how you ended up here doing this and kind of what it means to you a little bit. But yeah, I guess I just wonder like, because you kind of made this like your business now too, right? Like it's kind of like it's your, it's your livelihood. So like, how does that feel for you to be doing this now? Is it like any better? Is it any worse to be doing it like all the time and have to do it all the time?
Yeah.
Or what's it like for you now?
Yeah, you definitely have to pace yourself. I found that I have to find time for myself because, when I was working like a 9-to-5 job, it was hard to find the time to do it because this is what comforted me and what I love to do on my weekend, and I'll be up at like literally 11 o'clock to 2 a.m. just crafting. And now that it's my full-time business, I love my job. Like I've always had troubles finding a good job, even though like I love working in the environmental sector. I worked for Parks Canada for a year, and I've kind of just had different jobs. And it's nice to say that I love my job. Like
That's awesome.
It's awesome, and you definitely have to, when it's something like this where doing this is your job, you definitely have to find time to like not do it, which is hard for me because I always think, oh, like this would look really nice like this, like if I do this type of tufting with beadwork, and I have so many great ideas that I want to do, but I have to pace myself and find time to just relax because I'll end up in a burnout, especially when you're doing 2 workshops a week, having a store, also filling that store as well. It's a hard balance, but it's just trying to find that balance that's good. So but I mean, it's good. I'm really happy to say that I love what I'm doing in my job. So it's, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's like, I know you spoke about it a little bit too, but like, what is it like? Does it mean anything special to you to be doing this? Like, how does it feel like? Because I feel like, there's kind of, you're part of something bigger when you're doing that too, I imagine, right? A little bit. So.
Yeah, especially for me, like in this area, like I don't really know too many people that, are my age or any age doing the tufting. There's a few people, but I mean, like I'm not too many people doing in the area the workshops that, I want to continue to keep doing, especially for the youth and for people that want to reconnect to the art, because it's not only connecting to the art, it's also connecting to the culture as well. It's a lot of teaching goes into it as well, and I mean it's pretty amazing to be a part of that journey, and I know a lot of people within like the Barrie area that are bringing back the traditional hide tanning, which is so awesome to see. And I know them, and they're amazing. They're a part of that. It's like a movement almost. They're bringing back that traditional skill, but also the teachings that go with it. When I teach beadwork classes, or even this one, I said the teaching that you're going to learn from this is the patience and understanding of where we fit in as people, especially as Anishinaabe people. We learn from the land, we learn from the animals, and we respect that in a sense of through art, through the artwork that we do, is we're respecting that and we're telling a story. So when you see that artwork or that beadwork or whatever, it's telling a story. Even when it comes to basketry, each basket had a different purpose. Each no matter what it was, it had a different purpose. So even when it comes to tufting, that tufting tells a story through the artwork itself. And there's a lot of beautiful artwork up, in the territories of beautiful floral designs, and they all tell stories of medicines. And they might not tell stories of what we see on pictographs, but they do tell the stories of our connection to the land and the teachings that the land has to offer. So it's pretty amazing to be a part of it. As I said, it's kind of leaves me speechless.
Yeah. No, it's cool. Yeah, it's been, I think, yeah, it is exciting that's like there's a lot, it seems to be like there's a lot more happening, right? And there's like younger people learning things and doing things, and there's definitely like, it's been really great for me to have kind of the front row seat to seeing like some of the people that I've gotten to speak to so far, like
Yeah.
kind of demonstrate all the knowledge that they have, and so it's really cool.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also being recognized now in like schools. When we were at the high school, they mentioned that they might bring a traditional art class, and arts and crafts, because to be a credit, because that is teaching. There's so much to be taught, and I think a lot more schools should do that, is for our Indigenous youth and our students. This is traditional teaching. This is what they would have learned thousands of years ago, pre-contact. And now we have this school system. And when I was in high school, I don't know how to do budgeting. I didn't know business at all. And now here I am wishing I knew that. I'm like, I wish I knew how to do my own taxes, but
Yeah, right. Well, cool. Yeah. Well, thanks so much. I know there's a couple of comments, just people saying, so Jamie Levy, you might remember her from when you were in day camp here at the museum. Yeah. She was saying it was really cool to see you carrying on the things you learned from your grandma and your mom. So
yeah, thank you. That means so much. Thank you everyone for your comments. Thank you, Debbie and Christy. I will definitely talk to Kelly. That's one thing I'm doing this summer. So I'm always doing something new, something crazy. So
no, that's cool. Yeah. Thanks so much. I know Christy's typing something. Oh, she just saying thank you, and keep her posted on any workshops you have coming up too.
Yeah, follow our Facebook and our Instagram at Nopamine Creations. I'll type that in the comments so everyone knows.
Sure.
But that's where we post all of our workshops, and we'll probably post them in our store as well as posters. But at the moment, we're just wrapping up a couple of orders and workshops, and hopefully over the summer we'll have a few more coming. So we've had great feedback on them. So there's more to come.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, thank you so much for doing this. It was really cool to get to talk to you and hear you, share your story and share your knowledge and demonstrate this like traditional craft to us, and it's really cool to see that. So I appreciate it.
For having me. Yeah, anytime. Yeah.
Cool. Well, all right. So I guess I'll say goodbye to everyone. So thank everyone for joining and being here this afternoon. Stay tuned. We have more planned for this series for the rest of June, so check out our website for details. We have programs coming up this summer as well, so lots going on here. And yeah, so this is the first time we've done anything like this for June. So, we're very excited to have been able to have some, really talented people here sharing their knowledge and their stories with us, so, and their time. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, well, thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
All right.
We'll see you later.
Okay. All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye.